by Senator Dagenet. Thank you, Madam Chair. My question concerns credential recognition. Often people come over here, and in the first panel we brought this up. There are issues getting their credentials recognized. Right now, there is such a thing as sponsored immigration. This is a program where immigrants are brought over and their credentials are immediately recognized, and then they become professionals, engineers, doctors, so on and so forth. What I'm wondering is, how do you process these files? Because earlier you talked about economic immigrants. I'd really like to hear you say a few words about the two different ways immigrants come into the country. Well, to start, thank you for the question. All too often, we look at immigrants through the lens of programs. Is this a refugee, an economic immigrant? If they're an economic immigrant, what category do we belong to? What we perhaps should be doing is taking a step backwards. If you look at refugees from Afghanistan, if you look at asylum seekers, if you look at newcomers from Ukraine, often someone is sorted into the refugee category, but these are people with academic credentials, with skills. So what we should be doing is, yes, we should be looking at the refugee supports at the beginning, but then we need to figure out how to integrate them into the community and into society. We ought to examine programs like the Economic Mobility Program, which view refugees not just as users of social services, but as people who are able to contribute to the economy. This might be a new way of thinking for the department, and it is one we are very much seized with. Now, when it comes to federal programs, provinces and territories often have a lot of criticism, but one criticism we get is that often we are too focused on PhDs and skills. What we're moving towards is a system based on job categories. If we need more electricians in Canada, and everyone agrees on this, could we modify the Express Entry program to bring more electricians in? And we could use these techniques to boost Francophone immigration as well. Another complex issue is that often there are newcomers who are doctors, engineers, but who may not have their credentials recognized on the ground. If I may, I just want to add something. Sorry to interrupt. Does it matter where the immigrant comes from? Let's say one person has a degree from an English or French university. Their credentials will be recognized almost right away. And then let's say there's someone who has the same skills, but who comes from Haiti or from a different country. That person might not have their credentials recognized, and they might end up a taxi driver or in a different role, but highly overqualified. That the origin of the immigrant certainly plays a role as well. That's a very difficult question. It's a complex one. When it comes to credential recognition, yes, the federal government can play a role, but the provinces and territories will need to get on board. So will colleges. During the pandemic, I was working at Indigenous Services Canada, and often it would be my job. I would have trouble sending people from Ontario to Manitoba during the crisis because there wasn't even credential recognition between provinces. Provinces will need to participate in discussions, and we in the federal government we have a role to play as well. We need to figure out how to work with the provinces. They are making great strides when it comes to credential recognition, and we need to figure out how we can really benefit from the talent currently present in Canada. Maybe universities and colleges will need to participate in this. Sometimes there's complex situations where someone is partially credentialed. Is there a way we could bridge them over instead of making them start from scratch? There's work to be done in collaboration with the educational sector. I've been in touch with Universities Canada and with the colleges. They are hungry, they are enthusiastic about helping with this, and not just in the field of health, but in other fields as well.